What's going on, guys? Denny Films here, and in this video I'm going to show you guys how I edit my photos, and I'm going to share my thought process every step of the way. So I hope this video adds value to your photography in any way. I hope that you can learn from this, or maybe point out some things that I'm doing wrong too. I'm still learning myself, but yeah, let's get right into it. All right, so this photo I have here, this is sand dunes in Colorado. I took this back in 2018 on my Sony a7R III. It's been a long time. So I chose this one because it's perfect raw file to start with. It's nice and clean, pretty easy to follow. So let's get right into it. So the first thing that I'm going to start with is with the tone curve. It really depends on the photo. Typically, if the photo is a little too dark, then I'll start with the exposure section. But to me, the photo looks pretty flat. It's not too dark. It's not clipping in any way. So it's kind of a perfect start for me to begin with the tone curve. So the tone curve, one of the first things that I do is I kind of start with a point there, a point in the middle, and a point back here. And it all depends on the photo, right? In this particular photo, it doesn't look like it's clipping. So I'm going to bring this up. I'm going to bring the highlights up, just brighten it. And down here, I'm going to make the blacks darker, just to add some contrast to the photo. And at the end here, I'm going to bring it up a little bit to lift the blacks. Pretty simple S-curve. Nothing fancy. Just like so. So here's the before and after. Pretty big difference. It adds a pretty dramatic effect if you ask me. But you know what? I want to I don't want it to be too contrasty. There we go. So something like this. I think that's good enough. Let's go to the exposure section. So to me, I kind of want to show the sky a little bit more bright. I'm going to bring up the exposure a little bit. That's fine. Highlights, I'm going to bring it up a little bit. Maybe to around 15. Shadows, lift the shadows a little bit. Lift the blacks a little bit as well. And bring the highlights down to about -16. And then for white balance, I usually import the photo as shot and then kind of manipulate it from there. And honestly, it looks pretty good as shot. I could bring it up and warm it up a little bit more if I wanted to, maybe to around 72. And then 15 where it's at is fine. So the next part, I'm going to go to color grading. So here, depends on the photo again, but in this particular photo, I want it to be a little bit warm. So usually start with around 40 hue and bring a saturation. Sorry, let me just do this. 40 and this, you want it to be pretty subtle. So honestly, 7 is just fine. I'm not going to touch the midtones here. And then the highlights, something similar, maybe around 50. Bring this up to around 7. You want subtle, right? So here's a before, here's it after. It's very subtle, but it makes all the difference in my opinion. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to touch is the HSL. So in this section here, in the hue section, this is where you can adjust colors, right? So your reds, you can make them more pink or more orange. One little trick that I like to do, you see this little circle thing here? When you click on it, it has a selection tool. So with this tool, you can select any color on your image and manipulate it that way. You drag it down, it makes it more orange. You can see on the hue, you see how it's moving. Yeah, so this is a pretty neat tool. If you don't know what colors you want to manipulate, you can just use this tool, click on the image, and it'll do it for you. So for here, I want this to be a little bit more orange, but not too much. Maybe around 9, -9, yep. Pretty subtle. For luminance, I want this to be a little brighter. Just for your reference, there's 3 categories to this. There's hue, saturation, and luminance. So hue is the ability to manipulate the colors, right? If you want your reds to be more pink or more orange, you know, your yellows to be more green or orange, etc., right? This is to change your colors. And saturation sounds exactly what it is. This is just to, you know, saturate or desaturate certain colors of the image. So for example, if I wanted to saturate my oranges here, you can see it gets very orange, or you can desaturate it and it looks gray. And your luminance is basically just how bright you want these colors to be. So for the orange, I want it to be a little brighter. You can bring it all the way right, you can see that it makes it very bright, or all the way down, it kind of mutes it. So you got to play around with these 3 settings to get the ideal look that you want. But you know, I try to not touch this too much. I kind of like the natural look of things. I'm going to bring the saturation just a little bit to have a certain punch to the photo. And the last thing that I usually touch is in effects. I like a little bit of grain in my photo. I usually bring the amount to around 40 to 45. I think 40 is good. And this is a pretty good starting point so far. I usually go through the motions just like that, you know, applying the tone curve, the basic exposure settings, hue, saturation, color grading. And then from there, I kind of sit back and pause and say, you know, is this what I want? Does this inspire me? Does this photo make me feel warm and fuzzy inside? If not, then I kind of go back through the process and change certain things so that I get the desired photo that I want. So let's compare this to the original photo. So this is pretty good so far for me. I'm happy with this. You know, there's a certain punch and color and liveliness to the photo that I like. One thing that I usually do that I'm not showing in this video, because this photo was taken back in 2018 when I had the Sony, so I don't have the color profiles that I usually go through. When I'm using a color profile from Fujifilm cameras, they have a lot of unique film simulations that you can apply on top of your raw photos. But I don't have that here, so I'm going to stick with the Adobe Color standard profile. Don't want to mess with that. But you know what? In the next photo that we edit, I'm going to show you guys some of the color profiles that come with the Fujifilm cameras. They're amazing. I love adding them on top of my edits. Gives a really unique look. But from here, before I finish this photo, I like to go through and kind of clean up all the mess that's in the photo. You know, to me, this is like noise that kind of distracts the eye. So I'm gonna go to my healing brush here, kind of bring that down a bit. And you know, I like to hit space and kind of zoom in right there and just clean this up. Clean up a lot of the little specks here. You know, whatever stands out to me. Oh, this is a good one. This is just my camera sensor being dirty at the time. All right, just clean that up. Zoom back out, see whatever. Zoom back out and see whatever else is you know, kind of drawing my eye to, and just get rid of it. Because I want this photo to be as clean as possible. Clean this up. All right, and just do this, you know, this is up to your discretion. Pretty happy with this result. Here's the before and here's the after. Very simple process. I have a very simple approach in general. I kind of like the natural look of things. So I try to keep the colors true as possible, and adding a punch to it, if you will. I like things to pop. I like the colors to pop. I'm all about the colors. So this is my approach. It's very simple. And we're going to move on to the next photo using a Fujifilm RAW. All right, so we have a Fujifilm RAW photo here. I took this while we were in Paris back in 2022. Very busy street, you know, there's cars, there's people, there's a lot of things going on here. But let's focus on the overall image and colors and all that. Honestly, this looks pretty good at a camera, I'm not gonna lie. So let's begin. Again, I'm gonna start with the tone curve, just because I like to see how it shakes out before I manipulate certain exposure in areas of the photo. So I'm gonna bring the highlights down just a little bit, just because it's a little bright in these areas. Bring it down, kind of clip some of the whites out a little bit, ever so slightly. Bring this down for some contrast and lift up the blacks a little bit. Add this in the middle for your midtones. Kind of bring that up a little, like some exposure there. So let's see, so far this is what we have. Here's the before, here's the after, very subtle. It adds a little bit more dramatic look to it, if you will. Very simple. All right, the next thing I'm gonna do is so the first thing I notice is it's a little dark here where the tree branches are, and it's very bright here. So to compensate for this, I'm gonna go in this tool called masking, and I'm going to use a linear gradient. Just drag this down a little bit and bring up the exposure to about 50. Bring the shadows up a bit to about 15. There we go. It's still a little dark, so I'm gonna add another layer here. I'm gonna add a gradient instead, just to cover the tree branches. I'm gonna expand this out and bring up the exposure. There we go. I like a flat image in terms of exposure, so I love using masking tools to get the results that I want. So the next thing I'm going to do is go to my hue saturation tools here. I'm going to use this tool that I showed you guys earlier. Click on the tree or some of the leaves here and just adjust it a little bit. Add some color to it. Yeah, I like the reds. They really pop out. I'm going to bring some of the saturation up a little bit. And the luminance, since it's a little dark, I want to bring up the luminance in some of this. There we go, and look at that. So here we have so far, before and after. It's very subtle things that we've done, but it really makes the photo come alive. And go to color grading. I do want this image to look warm overall because it looks like a bright sunny day. It looks like there could be some sunlight hitting this that could be warm. So I do want to hit my highlights here. Bring the hue to around 40. That's my sweet spot right there. And saturation, I'm gonna bring this up to like 15. Oh, that looks good. For shadows, same thing. 40, maybe bring this up to 7. That looks good. So here's the before and after with the color grading. Very simple. All right, and the next thing I want to do is look at effects. Bring the grain to about 40, 42. Let's see how that looks. There we go. That's how it looks like with the grain effects added onto it. Before, after. But when you zoom out, you don't notice it. Okay, now to exposure. Now this one, like I said, I approach every photo differently. For this one, I like the way the exposure was already from the beginning, but I'm gonna make some changes here. Bring the shadows up to around 19. Bring the blacks up a little bit and crush the whites. And let's give the photo an overall lift. So go to exposure, bring this up, just make it nice and bright. Perfect. This looks great, love it. Now the last thing, like I mentioned to you guys earlier, what I love about Fujifilm is their film simulation. So under profile, you're gonna click on this little icon here, and it's gonna bring you to, where'd it go? I'm going to show you guys one more example using the color profile on Fujifilm cameras. For some reason, the photo I was editing before, there's something going on with the profiling. It just wasn't showing it for some reason. So this photo here is a photo I took at Washington Square Park in New York City. I did my editing and adjustments and everything already, so I just wanted to show you guys how the film simulations work. So right now it's using the standard Adobe color profile, and what I like to do is after I finish my editing, what I like to do after editing the photo is go through some of the FujiFilm simulations and, just picking one that I think looks really nice. And if none applies, then I'll just stick with the Adobe color profile, but that's rare because I love their film simulations. So they have really great ones, stereo soft, love the colors on this. So the ones that I gravitate to usually are the cinema one or the nostalgic one. Or sometimes one of these are very, the pro negative high and the pro negative standard. It's very subtle, but it brings out the colors and the contrast very well in the photos. So, kind of like to apply some of these, but here it is using the standard Adobe color, and here is the cinema one. It's very nice. So I'm going to apply that, and that's how I approach my photo editing. Hope this brings you guys value. I hope you learned something from this video, and yeah, just let me know what you think. And if you guys want, I can add some raw photos for you guys to edit and practice, and I would love to see what you guys come up with. Until then, I will talk to you guys in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. If you liked this video and you want to see more content like this, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.